Hello everyone, welcome back to the data transfer group of instructions that we are going to understand. In the last lecture, we have done with all the instructions related to moving from one location to another. The next instruction is LXIRP 16-bit data. Now, here LXIRP 16-bit data means load register pair immediate. Now what is that you are going to load register pair is that 16-bit data. So here the 16-bit data is directly copied to the mentioned pair of register. That's why it is written RP is taking the 16-bit data. And this instruction comes under immediate addressing mode as you are moving the immediate data to pair of register. And this instruction belongs to data transfer group, and this instruction is of 3 bytes. What are the 3 bytes? The 3 bytes are, one is the opcode, and the second and third bytes are the lower byte of the 16-bit data and then the higher byte of the 16-bit data. Now, as we know, in data transfer group, no flags are affected. So here, no flags are affected is written. And then what is the comment? We need to write about what is actually happening in the instruction. That is what is the comment. So in this instruction, the destination pair of register will be copied by the immediate 16-bit data. Okay, now here, what is the meaning of RP? It is pair of register. So in 8085, there are valid pair of registers which are B for BC pair of register, D for D pair of register, H for HL pair of register. And also here a special mention of stack pointer is there, that is SP is also taken as pair of register to put some address into the stack pointer. So you can use it as LXI SP 16-bit data also. And the example is, you can consider one example as LXIB 2030. Means what? This 2030 we are putting into BC pair of register. So after the execution of this instruction, B will have 20 and C will have 30 in it. Okay, the next instruction is LDA16bit address. Now you can compare the last instruction with this instruction. There we had written 16-bit data because that data itself was moving to the mentioned pair of register, whereas here that 16-bit is nothing but the address. Means what? Something is going to be related to that address. It is not the direct address which is moving. Here the data which belongs to that address is either moving to or moving from. Okay, now here LDA 16-bit address is load accumulator direct. Means what? Load accumulator with the contents at the mentioned address. Means what? Whatever is the mentioned address, at that location some data is there. That data is copied to accumulator. So that is the format. He is taking the data at the mentioned address. As we have mentioned the address directly here, so the addressing mode is direct addressing mode. Of course, this we are studying under data transfer group, and this instruction is also 3 bytes. So what are the 3 bytes? The 3 bytes are the opcode for LDA and lower byte of the 16-bit address, and then the higher byte of the 16-bit address. And no flags are affected, and you need to write the comment. The comment is, this instruction copies the content from the memory location whose address is there in the instruction itself to accumulator. Here you can consider one example as LDA D050. So you have to consider that some data is there at D050. So what are we considering here? We are considering even the contents of accumulator to say that the content of accumulator is copied by the content in the mentioned address. That's why we have considered here that A is having 02H and the content of memory location D050 is 09H. So after the execution of LDA D050, whatever is there in D050 is copied to accumulator. So what is there in D050? 09H. So before the execution, accumulator has 02. After the execution, the accumulator contents are 09, and the contents of the address remains unchanged. There is no change in the contents of the memory location. Okay. Next is STA16-bit address. This is just opposite of the last instruction, where in the last instruction whatever was there at the mentioned address was copied to accumulator. Here whatever is there in accumulator is going to go to the mentioned address. So accumulator, the data and accumulator is copied to the mentioned address. So addressing mode is again direct addressing mode. It is a data transfer group instruction. Of course, it is also 3-byte instruction. Now again, comment is what? I have left this place for you to write on your own, that STA16-bit address means store the contents of accumulator to the mentioned address. That is what is the comment. Similarly, we have considered some example. Consider the content of accumulator, consider the content of C1000. So after the execution, whatever is there in accumulator will be going to C1000 memory location. Okay, the next instruction that we are going to understand is LDAXRP. So the meaning of this instruction is load accumulator indirect. So this is like your LDA address, where you had mentioned the address in the instruction. Here the difference between LDA address and LDAXRP is whatever the address where you want to, from where the data you want to take, that address is stored in some pair of register. That pair of register is mentioned in the instruction. Okay, instead of the direct address, it is the pair of register where that particular address is stored. So from that location the data is moving to accumulator. So that is what is, it is written here 2 brackets within 2 square brackets. Why? Because some content of RP is the address and the content at that address is the double square bracket. Okay, that data is moving to accumulator. Since we are not taking the address directly, but we are taking the data from the address, that's why it is register in direct addressing mode. Of course, it is data transfer instruction and it is a single byte instruction. And here no flags are affected. And again you can see, consider the pair of register. What pair of register we have considered here is LDXB, means BC pair of register. So in BC pair of register some date address is there 3020. And at that location some data is there, that is 99H. So after the execution, what happens? After the execution of LDXP, the content which is 99 in the memory location 3020, which is there in BC pair of register, will be moving to accumulator. So after the execution, accumulator contents become 99H. Okay. So the next instruction is STAXRP. It is like again your STA address, but instead of address, where the address is stored is mentioned here. Whatever is there in accumulator, it is moving to pair of register. Pair of registers address, which is as a data which is there in the pair of registers, that becomes the address. To that address the data is moving. Okay, again accumulator is going to the memory location whose address is there in the mentioned pair of register. Indirect addressing mode is there. Of course, there is no flag affected. Data transfer group it is, and it is a single byte instruction. Again, example is given. So after the execution, whatever is there in accumulator will go to the memory location whose address is there in BC pair of register. Okay. Okay, next is LHLD 16-bit address. This is another instruction where you are storing the content of the data at the memory location which is there in the instruction and the next memory location to H and L register. So the meaning of this is whatever is there in the mentioned address is going to go to L register, and whatever is there in the next memory location which is going to go to H register. So that is how it is written. L is taking the content at the address. What is the content at the address? Whatever is the byte 3, byte 2 of the address, and then L is going to take the next address. Means if you can see in the example, LHLD D050, D050 and 51 are to be considered. So whatever is there in D050 will go to L register, and whatever is there in D051 will go to H register. That is how the data is transferred. Okay, since it is having 1 byte as opcode, other 2 bytes are the address, it is a 3-byte instruction. Okay, and what is the addressing mode here? The addressing mode is direct because the address is mentioned in the instruction. Okay, the same we have explained with the one particular example, LHLD 2100. So in 2100 some data is there, in 2101 some data is there. That 2100 data will go to L register, and 2101 data will go to H register. So after the execution, H will have 52, L will have 31 as the content. Okay, that is the example of LHLD instruction. Next is SHLD 16-bit address. So as you have seen in LHLD, whatever is there in the address is going to go to the H and L register. Here whatever is there in H and L are going to go to address and next address. So L will go to the mentioned address, H content will go to the next address. So if you see the example here, SHLD D050, whatever is there in L register will go to D050, whatever is there in H register will go to D051. And the next instruction of data transfer group, and it is the last instruction under data transfer, is exchange instruction. So in this exchange instruction, the exchange is between a set of pair of registers, and it is fixed pair of registers, that is HL are exchanged with DE. How they are exchanged? H contents will go to D and D content will go to H. Similarly, L will be exchanged with E. That's why exchange H and L with D and E, and the instruction is only XCHG. Okay, as we are not mentioning any operand here, it is having addressing mode as implicit or implied. But as you see the operation here, the operation is between the registers. That's why sometimes it is the addressing mode is also coming under register addressing mode. Okay, and then you have which group it belongs, and what are the how many bytes the instruction is, and all that we need to understand. Okay, when you see the comment, it is just that the contents of H and L are exchanged with D and E. That is what you need to write. And then consider the example as exchange. The instruction itself is XCHG, and you need to consider the contents of H and L, D and E. And after the execution, whatever is there in H will go to D, and then whatever is there in D will come to H. Similarly, L content will go to E, and E content will go back to L. So that is what is the meaning of XCHG. Okay, thank you.